a movement we could all get behind. Abolish the ATF. I know all of you at home are on board already. Just those three simple words. Joining me now to discuss the man who's reintroducing that piece of legislation. Please welcome to the show Congressman Eric Burlison, from the great state of Missouri. Congressman, I'm very excited to have you on today, and I'm very excited that you're reintroducing this piece of legislation because I know my audience isn't a fan of the ATF because we're well aware at the the Second Amendment, I should say, violations that have gone on with this agency and how rogue they've gone. So break this all down for us. What is this legislation going to do, and do you think you have the support to get it through Congress?
Yeah, it's a very simple piece of legislation. It was originally sponsored by Matt Gaetz a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, and I was the first co-sponsor of this bill. So when Matt resigned, I immediately reached out to him and asked if I could take up the mantle on this one, and he graciously allowed me to take possession of the bill. So kudos to Matt Gaetz. But it's a very simple bill. It's a one pager that just says the ATF is hereby abolished. And look, this is an agency that is very duplicative. They overlap in their responsibilities with a lot of other federal agencies, and then really overlap with our state and local, law enforcement officials who are the ones that actually are trying to keep us safe, right? And so
Yeah.
the ATF, generally speaking, a lot of times they pass these stupid unconstitutional rules, like banning pistol braces, or their new rule change on making a bunch of people now have to be a gun dealer. They make these changes, and then they go and commandeer your local sheriff, your local police department, and you name it, to go and enforce these unconstitutional gun grabs. And look, what they're doing is they're taking law enforcement off the line of protecting, the citizens in the community and keeping the community safe. And instead, they're on this wild goose chase for stupid things like pistol braces. So it's an agency that has a really storied history, going back all the way to Ruby Ridge. Whenever they, in my opinion, they entrapped the individual. Then they raided his property and killed many members of his family. Then you had the Waco siege that happened that was just such an embarrassment. And then you've got the Fast and Furious incident that happened where they basically armed the Mexican drug cartels, right? Just again and again and again. And then you have this recent event in Arkansas where the individual Malinowski, who was a stand-up community leader, they commandeered local law enforcement. The ATF went in and raided his home, and ended up killing him. Why? Because apparently he was purchasing too many firearms, right? So it's not about keeping people safe. It's about making it very difficult, onerous, and expensive to be a lawful, law-abiding gun owner in America. And this unconstitutional agency just needs to go away.
Yeah, Congressman, our audience agrees with you. And because we've had people like Dexter Taylor on the show. Dexter Taylor is someone right now who's actually, and sadly, is sitting in New York State prison. But it was the ATF that spotted him purchasing pieces online. And as they call it, he was creating ghost guns. And they went after him, raided his home. And all he wanted to do was he's a nerd. He wanted to learn a little bit more about building guns and wanted to do that himself at home when he's legally entitled to do that. Second Amendment allows him to do that. But sadly, New York doesn't agree with that. And it was the ATF that was the one who flagged it and put it on New York's radar for him. And they were kind of spying on him at that point, going through his credit card records and such. So this is something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. But a lot of those on the left will give a rebuttal and say that we need the ATF to kind of tell us when there's people who shouldn't be having guns in their possession, that they are having guns in their possession. And it also might fight back on terrorists and such. What kind of solution would you suggest how we fix those issues? Because it's obviously not the ATF.
Right. At the end of the day, the ATF isn't, they're not doing a good job when it comes to stopping terrorism. They're just going after, law-abiding gun owners. But look, that job is more successfully done by other agencies like the FBI, or really by and large your local law enforcement. Again, your state highway patrol, sheriff's office, your police department. those are the agencies that really more responsive to the citizens of a state and actually care about keeping their community safe.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's really important. I want to get to this because this caught my attention yesterday, and Kyle Seraphin, too, the FBI whistleblower, he forwarded this over to us. Border Patrol found an individual who was trying to bring this to Mexico. It's two rocket grenade launchers, and according to Kyle Seraphin, this could actually take out a chopper. And so this was actually horrifying that this was made. We think was made in the United States and was making its way down to Mexico, but it's something that wasn't on our radar. And again, we don't have a secure border right now. I know yesterday the House voted on the Lakeland Riley Act, and sadly, 159 Democrats decided not to support it. But it's important that we mention that this could have prevented Lakeland Riley's passing if we did what we're supposed to do, and that's protect our country, protect our border, and deport those who are dangerous. You supported the Lakeland Riley Act. Why did you support it? And how do you feel about Democrats just not jumping on board with this?
I don't. I think that they're insane. I think they've drank the Kool-Aid,
Yeah.
and it's this is why they lost so many voters in the election, is that they've just gone way too far in their mentality. I mean, when you have a situation where you have people that are not only here illegally and violating our laws just to be here, but then they're committing further criminal acts while they're here, and you still don't want to deport them. Like, I don't understand, or detain them even. That's what the bill requires, is that you detain them just like you would a U.S. citizen who commits these same crimes. So there's no logical sense in why they would vote no, other than they're all still on this bandwagon of trying to play to all the woke and the critical race theory stuff. They're all of those things is what they're more focused on than actually being logical and keeping people safe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's infuriating that we have to argue these things because it's common sense. I mean, we saw what happened in New York City to that poor woman who was sitting in a subway, sleeping in a subway with an illegal alien who I uncovered was actually sadly, he was on social services in the state of New York. And so he was receiving benefits from the state, and DHS was unaware that he was even in our country. And so we've got a lot to unpack. I know there's a lot of, uh, I'll just go with it, rhinos who are not really that optimistic in regards to mass deportations. We keep hearing that they don't think President Trump, when he gets back into the White House, is going to be able to carry out mass deportations. How do we push forward and make sure that we are deporting these people who illegally came into our country?
I think that it is a clear priority for this administration coming in. I think that him appointing Homan, as the borders are, I think that sends a very, very clear message. When you look at all of his appointments, really, he's not playing games. Trump is, and he's learned his lesson from having to fight the swamp years before, and I think he wants to create a legacy. So, I will feel really sorry for anybody in my party that wants to oppose Trump's efforts to strengthen the border and deport people as was promised in the campaign. Um,
Yeah.
I think that we have to recognize that the American people gave him a mandate, and it's our responsibility to execute all of things that was campaigned on.
Yep. Yep. And we plan on making sure that those all do get carried out because it's really important to the American people. Congressman, thank you for joining us today. We greatly appreciate your time. This show streams on several different platforms. We just joined the Mel K show. She's broadcasting my shows on Sundays. I also just recently joined, you're probably watching right now, on Graham Allen's network over at Dear America Plus. So we're expanding. So many of you actually probably don't even know who I am. So let me give you a brief summary. I worked in the corporate media world for years, up to 10 years. And it didn't work out for me because when I was over at Fox Corp, which is Fox News, Fox Business, they wanted me to comply with an illegal private sector vaccine mandate that was put out by the New York City mayor. Now, they only told me this when they finally got me to move back to New York City. So that's the real catch here. But I wasn't going to comply. And I made that very, very obvious. And so I was out of a job. I resigned. And I started off on this independent journey. I helped other shows, started up their shows. And then I started my own show about a year ago. And It's been very, very interesting since. I've broken some incredible stories like Tulsi Gabbard. As many of you guys know, she was added to a terror watch list, but you only know that because I broke it for you guys on this program. I've also broken several other stories, and I'm very proud of that. But the work that I've done wouldn't be possible if you guys at home weren't supportive of it. I literally couldn't survive as an independent journalist if I wasn't receiving your help, because we're not taking any money from any foreign governments, no Russians, of course, or corrupt corporations, like Pfizer. Pfizer's not going to sponsor this show, nor would I ever take their money. So I seriously rely on you all at home. So if you'd like to keep this show up and running, we've got a platform set up for you. It is supportbre.com. That's supportbre.com. That's where you can make a monthly donation. You got to pick the dollar amount. You could pick a $5 amount, $7, $20, $30, whatever you want to pick. It's done through Donor Box. And the reason why we love it when you do the monthly side of all of this is because that donation helps me out significantly with hiring help. We need people to help us out going through a lot of documents, and that's the best way to do so. So head on over to supportbre.com. That's supportbre.com if you're looking to help my work as an independent journalist. Because, folks, if we don't support independent journalists, you guys are going to have to rely on the corporate media world. And you all know that they've already been bought off by big pharmaceutical companies, foreign governments, even the White House, Biden regime. So if you want to keep independent journalism alive, support me over at supportbre.com, because I greatly appreciate it when you do just that.